we're halfway through the year 2000, and still no Y2K problems, right? Remember when nothing happened on New Year's Eve and all the survival nuts said, well, the viruses are just delayed, that's all. Well, we got the Shamu of all computer viruses in tonight's flick, Virtual Assassin, also known as Cyberjack. And ex-cop martial artist Michael Dudikoff has to stop it from getting out, because how do you fight a really serious virus? Kung Fu, right? I'm Joe Bob Briggs, and that reminds me, how come cops always stomp all over the crime scene? How come every time you watch a criminal trial, there's some cop who drops a glob of potato salad on the bloody footprint, or leaves the fingerprint cards on the dashboard of his Chevy Nova and burns them up, or tracks mud all over the linoleum in the kitchen where the murder took place? I've never been a cop, and I've never been involved in a murder case, but I know how to preserve a crime scene just from watching Kojak. So how can this happen in 98% of the cases? I'm fairly sure that if I ever did stumble on a murder scene, I'd start screaming out, don't touch anything, don't walk on it, don't breathe on it, put an electrified fence around this stuff. And how come I know this? How come everybody knows this except the cops who show up and start lounging around on the sofa, kicking off their shoes and starting a fire in the fireplace where the murderer threw his arson matches? You know, there was a cop in the O.J. case who used the gall-darn phone. So then they couldn't get any fingerprints to find out who else might have used that phone. Didn't they have a class at the police academy where they show old episodes of Law and Order or something? You know, whenever the cops finally get on the witness stand, they say stuff like, well, then we put the revolver in a baggie, and I took it down to my son's Little League game, and then I gave it to Officer Wilcox, who stuffed it in a duffel bag in his locker until Captain Giles fished it out and logged it into the evidence room where it fell off a shelf and the grip got broken. And then the prosecutor has to say with a straight face, so other than those people in those locations, this gun was taken directly from the crime scene to the courtroom today. Is that correct? And the cop says, yes, that's correct. And then the judge gets blamed for throwing out the evidence and letting loose the guy being tried for his 48th felony. So listen up, just don't touch the gall-darn stuff, okay? I do not want to have to tell you guys again. Let's start the movie. Cop turned janitor battles evil cyber geek in Virtual Assassin, a.k.a. Cyberjack. Roll it. You know what would be really interesting? A B-movie that started out with a printed quote from Stephen Hawking. Nah, nobody'd ever do that. Well, I didn't really get to set up this flick before we started it, so let's recap so far, shall we? This cop of the future accidentally got his foxy partner killed by a crazy albino, so he took to boozing it up, which is what cops do when they accidentally get their partner killed, and now he's a janitor in a company that's made a virus that can think because they've merged it with neurological protoplasm, and instead of destroying systems, it inoculates them against other viruses, or viri. Anyway, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is an organic virus, but it's stored in a computer, and it works like a computer virus. Even though a computer virus is just a joke word, isn't it? It doesn't really mean your computer can get AIDS or anything. But anyway, I think that's what they're saying here. Meanwhile, a loan shark is after him, and a computer nerd just helped a hacker cause a flying bus to crash because he was having phone sex with an air traffic controller. Is that what's happened so far? I thought so. Okay, let's do the drive-in totals, which I didn't have time for earlier. We have 71 dead bodies, 3 brawls, exploding skybus, 2 exploding bad guys, exploding cop car, exploding cop, exploding elevator, belly dancing hologram, eye gouging, dagger to the neck, choking, hanging somebody upside down and spinning them around, finger bending, kung fu, golf club foo, big giant wrench foo, gratuitous baseball chatter. I'd give it 2.5 stars. Oh, and did I mention the gorgeous female computer scientist, daughter of the genius behind the dangerous, uncontrollable cyber weapon? Whatever that character is, her name is Suki. Suki Kaiser. It is, because you know, those horny soldiers in Nam and everything, you got those combo plate marriages for a time there, right?
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Monstervision and Virtual Assassin after these messages.
Those are some well-dressed terrorists, don't you think? A lot of silver studs and black leather in the future, isn't there? Okay, we got the crazy albino madman, of course. That's the late, great Brian James as Nassim. We'll talk about him later. We got Travis, the cowboy hacker. We got an evil blonde punk guy called Numb. You'll find out why he's called Numb in just a little bit. We got the Jamaican Rasta guy. I have to assume he's the one in the credits named Reef. And, of course, we have the girl disguised as a carpet cleaner who takes off those impractical coveralls to reveal a silver breastplate and black leather hot pants, because that's what bad girls wear when they're stealing a computer virus that will give their boyfriends control of the world. It's all about dressing appropriately. Okay, commercials, and then back to Virtual Assassin, also known as Cyberjack. In the future, they obviously have those gravity-defying halter tops, you know? Either that or she's got that thing riveted into her collarbone, because it cantilevers those puppies out there at a 45-degree angle, you know? Nice.
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Monstervision and Virtual Assassin after these messages.
What was the watch for? Was that payment for rescuing them and saving the world? Hope it's not a swatch. Better be something Swiss-made. All right, which rule of filmmaking is it that says all buildings have a system of man-sized air ducts that allow anybody access to any part of the building at any time? Is that rule number 26? Somewhere in there, I think so. Not to mention rule number 48, they will always fall for the I have to go to the bathroom trick in the movies. You know, the guy never says, no, that's too risky, just pee down your leg. They never say that. They always say, oh, okay, come on, you know. That's Michael Dudikoff in the air ducts as Nick, the cop-turned-janitor. And Michael's first serious acting job was as Joni's boyfriend on Happy Days, pre-Chachi. And then he was hired by Menahem Golan of Cannon Films to be groomed as the next Charles Bronson. And he ended up making a whole lot of two-word B movies. Listen to this: Fugitive Mind, Freedom Strike, Black Thunder, Countermeasures, Strategic Command, Bounty Hunters, Crash Dive, Moving Target, Midnight Ride, Platoon Leader, Avenging Force, American Ninja, parts 1, 2, and 4. They didn't use him on 3. He was misbehaving. And, of course, Virtual Assassin. This movie tonight was originally called Cyberjack, but they changed it because they realized Cyberjack was only one word. Okay, ads, and then back to the flick. Michael Dudikoff, what a man. One of those Russian Jew martial artists, you know, very dangerous people.
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Monstervision and Virtual Assassin after these messages.
Did Michael Dudikoff just grab a big handful of silicone implant baggies off a stool? Is that what he did? Replicators. Yes, indeed. They do replicate those puppies, don't they? And now we're deep, deep, deep into the cat and mouse part of the flick. Did I ever mention how I hate cat and mouse?
About 100 times, which is why I thought it'd be a good time for Joe Bob's Advice to the Hopeless.
I love it when you take the initiative like that, Rusty. Just charge right in. Do you want to give me a letter?
Oh, yes. This is from David H. Hawley of Murray, Kentucky.
A little slow on the uptake, aren't you?
Well, you usually make a little chit-chat first.
Well, yeah, that was the old days. Nowadays, if I talk too long, the high sheriff sent an electric current through my chair. It shocks me on the butt. Anyway, dear Joe Bob, I'm on your side, Joe Bob, really, but I really do wish you would get the distinction between semi-automatic and automatic, also called fully automatic, fire clear. The difference is that a semi-automatic gun only fires once each time you pull the trigger, no matter how fast you pull the trigger, and if you yank it as fast as you can empty the gun pretty quick without hitting anything on purpose. Automatic or fully automatic guns fire continuously as long as the trigger is held down until they run dry or jam. The public's confusion about this has caused a lot of harm to the exercise of our Second Amendment rights. That's how the so-called assault weapons ban got passed. Everybody thought wrongly that semi-automatic meant machine guns, which was fully, not semi-automatic. Machine guns, in other words. I'm sure you're not perpetuating this error on purpose, but your careless use of the language contributes to the difficulties we face in upholding and defending the Constitution, okay? Sincerely, David H. Hawley, Murray, Kentucky. David, you're absolutely right. I'll try to be more specific in the future. Semi-automatic. That's not illegal, right?
Not where I learned to shoot.
In Texas, right?
The Air Force.
The Air Force. Oh, right. Yeah. Hey, why don't you take me out sometime and show me what real firepower is, Rusty?
I don't know.
Come on, Russ. Me, you, 10 inches of cold, hard steel, if you know what I mean. I think
oh, well, that deserves a shock in the butt.
Oh!
Oh, you weren't kidding.
No, I wasn't kidding. They set this thing up.
Oh, I'm going to like this new rule.
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Monstervision and Virtual Assassin after these messages.
Okay, so that was an automatic rifle that Nick just used to kill the Rastaman, not a semi-automatic. I'm glad we cleared that up in the last break. Never run through a house of mirrors in a dashiki. He should have known that. And by the way, you can clear up any number of things by writing to me, care of TNT, 1010 Techwood Drive, Atlanta, Georgia, 30318, or email me at joebob@turner.com. Okay, Brian James is doing a pretty good job as the creepy cyber terrorist control freak, isn't he? Sadly, Brian James died almost a year ago of a heart attack at the age of only 54. This guy, I don't know, those of you who know Brian James, he was like Bruce Dern and Gary Busey together on the scariest days of their careers. And I'm not talking about Busey's roles in those born-again videos he's doing now, but have a little respect for Gary, you know. But Brian James was the replicant in Blade Runner who made that, he made famous that line, "Wake up, time to die." Remember that? I don't either, but Brian was the guy who said that. No, I remember that line. He was also in Southern Comfort, both 48 Hours flicks, and one of my favorites, Corvette Summer with Mark Hamill. Of course, the great Corvette Summer. Not to mention over 100 other films. And Brian studied with the famous acting teacher, Stella Adler. He actually paid for his classes by working as her houseboy. And get this, doing stand-up comedy. Can you imagine that guy doing stand-up? Woo, yeek. Okay, back to Virtual Assassin, a.k.a. Cyberjack, after the ads. Actually, when Brian died, Corey Feldman told the newspapers that he was, quote, the sweetest, kindest, most beautiful person, and that they knew each other from AA meetings. And if Corey Feldman says the guy was okay, then the guy must have been okay. But my question is, what did Corey Haim think? That's the real test of a person's character.
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Monstervision and Virtual Assassin after these messages.
Okay, we're losing altitude fast, aren't we? Did that guy just get injected with a computer virus? I still think they got the whole virus thing messed up. There was a screenwriter who actually thought a virus in a computer and a virus in a test tube were the same thing, and now Nick is being chased by a police probe that looks like a disembodied outboard motor, but he won't tell it that there's an evil terrorist knocking people off every 5 minutes down the hall. And Dr. Royce used his daughter's name as the final password we were waiting for that unlocks the maximum strength computer virus. Wasn't that sneaky? Didn't the guy see War Games? And the screenwriters forgot to put one thing in this story. Plot twist. Is everybody just going to wander around the office hallways for the rest of the flick, or what? Thank goodness we have that baseball game to keep us engrossed. We haven't had too many references to that. In fact, let's check the score after the commercials when we get back to the exciting finale of Virtual Assassin, a.k.a. Cyberjack. Nassim is going to be able to direct the virus with his thought waves or something. Did they program it for that? It seems like that's the kind of thing you'd have to tell a computer program ahead of time, don't you think? I mean, it'd be like sticking Microsoft Word in your brain or something, then being able to run a spell check on your neighbor. Actually, I'd buy that if they had that.
More in a moment with Joe Bob's Monstervision and Virtual Assassin after these messages.
So the green laser eye effect goes through the headphones and turns everybody into mindless zombies as the virus bounces back and forth between the computer and the insane guy. Shouldn't they explain these rules at the beginning of the movie? They didn't talk about zombies, did they? When did we get the zombie army? Okay, next week, a sexy computer scientist and her boyfriend try to stop an evil high-tech geek from taking over the world in Virtual Assassin, a.k.a. Cyberjack again. No, it's Replicator. It is a different movie. And check the Monstervision website for proof of that, tnt.turner.com/JoeBob. That's it for me, Joe Bob Briggs, reminding you women that if you think you're fat, you probably are. Did you guys hear the one about Sven and Oli who worked together and were both laid off? So off they go to the unemployment office, and the clerk asks Oli his occupation, and Oli says, panty stitcher. I sew the elastic onto cotton panties. And the clerk looks up panty stitcher and finds it classified as unskilled labor, and so she gives him $300 a week unemployment pay. So then the clerk asks Sven his occupation, and Sven says, diesel fitter. So the clerk sees diesel fitter is a skilled job, so she gives Sven $600 a week. So Ole finds out about this, and he's furious. He storms back into the unemployment office to find out why his friend and coworker is collecting double his pay. And the clerk explains that panty stitchers are unskilled and diesel fitters are skilled labor. So Ole yells, "What skill? I sew the elastic on." Sven pulls on it and says, "Yep, diesel fitter." Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that the drive-in will never die. You were less than enthusiastic about that. You guys hear about the guy that lost his left arm and his left leg in a car crash? He's all right now.